The
illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And who's stupid, by the way. And this is Peyton Jones.
What I love is I text you, Raised by Wolves is stupid. And your immediate response back is, you're stupid. I'm like,
I'm not 5.
Dude, I'm watching that stupid show because, and I knew you and I are so different. Outside of Star Wars, we have almost like nothing in common. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's kind of true. Did you like Prometheus?
It was all right. I didn't think it was great.
See, I'm obsessed with Prometheus.
Why?
I think everybody else is stupid. How could you morons not see the genius? That's how I feel about Prometheus. Then, when he makes the sequel to that, I can't remember, Alien Covenant, to try to like give the fans what they want again. I was like, oh, come on. Like, you made a genius film. And then the next one.
What did you find was so genius about Prometheus?
Okay. So if you go back and watch that from the very first, there's this God thing that he's playing with, right? All about being the creator. He makes the android. The android starts off saying things like, so in a way, I'm more brilliant than you are. Like, I'm a higher form because I've met my creator, but you haven't, right? So the whole thing is they're going to meet their creators. So, I mean, there was just so much in there about God. Like, if you wanted to riff off of our relationship with God, and then the way that he takes the alien goo, right? The whole kind of premise of it, the underlying premise of these aliens are going to be part android, part flesh. There's just so much there, and I go deep on Prometheus, man. So all the criticisms, I'm like, it's like when people criticize the Bible, you're like, oh, it's easily dismantled. You're thinking surfacey.
I think we can all agree, though, that Raised by Wolves is a truly stupid show.
So, okay, so I'm curious. What did you not like about it?
Well, I didn't like, from the very beginning, all of it. I don't like the
that
characters.
Narrows it down a bit.
I don't like the outfits. Yeah. I don't like anything.
When it first starts and they're all moving all nerdy and stuff, I thought the same. Like, when it first kicks off, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to like this. This is goofy. And then
I could tell why you liked it. I mean, come on. It's between the atheists and the religious people. I mean,
was ripped off a bit from Robert Jordan Wheel of Time, where they had like the Church of the Sun and they worship the sun god. Like that's all been done. That was ripped off. The White Cloaks, that was all ripped off from a fantasy novel.
A big part of this is Monty Python. All of them are wearing Monty Python outfits. The dude with the helmet
are.
The dude with the helmet, every single outfit they're wearing, I'm like, this is truly stupid. But Peyton wants to talk about it.
I will, but that
Peyton wants to talk about it on the podcast, and he's not making me read a book. So okay, I'll watch the show.
I appreciate that because there's whole podcasts that have spawned off this. Like, you and I, when we find a show we agree on, we need to just start a podcast on it.
Well, Walking Dead, that was probably the only one. But even then, we were both like, I think we disliked the same stuff.
Oh, we love the same stuff on that show.
Yeah. I think Walking Dead probably would have been the only show.
Because you and I both went nuts over Terminus. We thought that was amazing.
Terminus was cool.
That freaked the crap out of me and you.
Yeah. Like when they go running by and there's all the skeletons. And
oh, gosh. That was so creepy. Andrea, back then, before Negan came on the scene and beat everyone with a baseball bat, she's like, yeah, I didn't know if I could keep watching after Terminus. And I was like, I was all in.
It's okay.
That's so how it would be.
It's okay, Maggie. I'm good. I'm still okay. Eyeballs hanging out of his head. I'm like, Yeah, that was a good show.
It was a good show.
Do you think they're going to bring Rick back, or is he going to be in this new spinoff?
3 movies.
He's in 3 movies?
Yeah, 3 movies. There's a 3-movie arc where they will bring Rick Grimes in, and he's flown off in the helicopter, so they had plans for that. But COVID's kind of jacked everything up. I mean,
I've hated this new spinoff. Have you seen the new spinoff that started a couple weeks ago?
No.
Yeah.
What is it?
World Beyond. Walking Dead World Beyond.
I'd probably like it then.
Yeah, you probably would, because you don't have, I'm not going to say publicly why I don't like it, but I
hated Fear of the Walking Dead. It starred Californians acting like Californians during the apocalypse, and I just can't stand that. I can't take it.
I don't mind Fear of the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny that they've killed off everybody who was in season 1.
But
except for
that's
one
good.
guy.
I might like it because that one, the main character, I don't remember what her name is, but she always has a stink face.
She's dead.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it again because she.
You know who they brought over to it? They brought
stink
Morgan.
face.
They brought Morgan over to it.
That's what I heard.
To save it.
I could probably get on board with that, but it was her stink face all the time. Every scene she had stink face, and I was I just can't handle stink face anymore.
It's so funny because there are certain actresses that my wife and I will watch, and we're like, these women would be so pretty if they would just smile. They're always mad or upset, and it's like, just smile. You're a beautiful person. Can't you smile?
Hollywood has this kind of weird. You and I have been around truly tough people. A, there's my brother. B, there's Navy SEALs that have been on very high-profile missions. Refuge Long Beach. Anyone who's dangerous there, they don't walk around like this all the time. Dangerous people don't, and they don't talk about how they're bad. I'm bad. That's not how tough people truly act. Tough people are usually pretty reserved. They're pretty calm. They're pretty chill. They're usually very polite.
Yep.
And they're dangerous.
Very.
And so I have this, I always think to myself, Hollywood, you portray this image of tough people that's annoying to me because I've been surrounded by very dangerous people for a good chunk of my life. And I don't, I don't buy it. It's laughable. It makes it very hard for me to believe this person's actually tough.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But Raised by Wolves, you got to get to the end. If you didn't like Prometheus, if Prometheus was okay.
Why do you say it has something to do with aliens? Is it
it's getting there.
Is it in the Aliens saga?
Okay, so it's only rumored, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. And particularly as you get to the last 2 episodes.
See, what I find just absolutely asinine is they lived there for 12 years and now all of a sudden they're seeing this animal. It's like,
what did you see? Did you watch? Because I think there's 10 episodes, right?
Yeah.
What animal have you seen? What animal have you seen?
The one that they started eating because they couldn't eat the food. It was too radioactive.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, how can you live there for 12 years and not see that animal? Do you
think it might have something to do with that big, strange shaped object sitting out in the desert doing weird things? That might have gotten somehow activated?
I didn't think that. And I want to know what the holes are for. I want to know what the holes are for.
Yeah.
Like these perfectly shaped pits. Do they explain that?
No, and that's what I love about it. Is it's like a typical Ridley Scott, where people got to remember, Alien comes out, we didn't understand the half of it, and each Alien movie comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, so this corporation is really evil. The Wayland Corp is just totally evil and wants to weaponize. You don't get. They start unpacking little by little. You don't understand how are their eggs there, right? And then they explain the Queen. Each episode, you get a little more and a little more. And what I love about this is it's typical Ridley Scott, where you get enough to like kind of mess with your head, like Prometheus. And Ridley Scott said Prometheus, he goes, I messed with people too much. They thought they were just going to get an alien origin story. And he goes, and I made them work. I provided mystery. It was meant to be a trilogy. He's almost scrapped it, but he's going to bring part 3 in now. I hope he goes more Prometheus, because as much as the outcry was, there's actually more people they found that loved Prometheus than loved Covenant. And I just think Prometheus was a misunderstood masterpiece. I can watch that thing over and over.
Yeah, so. Covenant, they changed too much of the story when all of a sudden, that airborne toxin could like change their bodies like too quick. Like that
What's interesting about him, so Ridley Scott has gone on record. Welcome to Church Planner Podcast, by the way. Ridley Scott, if you're new here, this is what we do the first 30 minutes, then we get into church planning. But what Ridley Scott actually said was in the next film that he's working on, he said, androids are key to everything, which they already have been in the Prometheus timeline. David goes rogue, right? He's a higher form of intelligence in humans. They've already said he excels over his maker. You've got these I can't remember the name of them, but the race of aliens. I can't remember what they're called, but they basically were supposedly come from them, and they're always experimenting. That's what these aliens are. They're experimenting, and so they create the alien life form, and it backfires. They're called engineers. That's what they are. They're the engineers. They've engineered this form, and David kind of, he says he thinks it's a weapon, that they're developing life to colonize and, possibly a race to enslave. You get the impression when you get to, when they meet their makers, that the maker sees them as an abomination. And what he was actually going to do, they were going to actually unleash the alien organism onto Earth to wipe us out, because they didn't like us. They felt they had made a mistake with us. So Prometheus. Well,
to be honest, they're kind of right.
Well, so think about it.
Should wipe out Earth.
Think about it from the perspective of somebody who this is what's fascinating about Alien is it God? Because Ridley Scott kind of teases out that God exists in this universe, and that we're meant to understand by the engineers creating us, like that we're indirectly created by the engineers, but there's still God and faith is real and yada yada. But what happens is that, and part of it, he said in an interview, and this is totally blasphemous. So those of you listening, just hold on a second. I'm not in any way, but apparently, in Ridley Scott's mind, Jesus was an engineer come to like turn us back to the right way, and we killed him. And so that's why when they meet him, they're like, hey, and forgive me for even giving word to that blasphemy. It's terrible. But it's not in the films anywhere, so I just ignore that. But what's rad,
by the way, did you see what Ryan Smith wrote on our Facebook feed?
No, is this live? Is it the live thing?
Yeah. I don't even know if I can say it. Love watching this podcast while doing my business in the bathroom. Good stuff.
Man, he ought to be a co-host. He fits right in.
And he tried to convince my boys to join Space Force. I love it, man. Oh man, sorry. Anyway, go on.
So, anyways, I don't even know where I was going, but the whole idea that there's this whole God thing, I just love it, man. And that David is trying to engineer. He goes nuts. The android goes nuts. And so he starts trying to engineer an organism of perfection. And so he somehow mixes alien technology with Shaw. Remember, he kills Shaw.
Yeah.
And then he uses her DNA, her blood, to bio what is it? What do you call it when something is part robotic and part it's not android, but there's a word, bio something, I don't know. But he's engineering this being that's part android technology. So that's why the metal, so androids are a big deal. So there's a reason why Alien has kind of mechanical bits to him as well, is he has made this perfect organism that can adapt and yada yada. And the spores, by the way, that's David. So when you go into that room and he's got all those writings on the wall, and she's looking through, or the other android, Walter's looking through the book, he's piecing together what's happened. This dude's crazy. and he's been engineering crap. The spores were engineered by him.
Oh, I get it. I thought it was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I get it. I actually, the first time I saw that movie, Covenant, I was like, what a waste.
I saw it with
then
Ruben
I watched
Young.
it a second time, and it creeped me out.
I saw it with Ruben Young. Like a whole bunch of us went to go see it opening night. And I remember afterwards, we were all just kind of like, like
that's how I felt. I was so deflated. And then I went back and watched it again. And I had to just ignore the like teen slasher film aspects of it that annoyed me, which is classic Alien. I don't know why I did. I think because Prometheus, I was expecting the sequel to Prometheus, but there were elements of both. And the elements that were just super creepy is all the crap he made out of Shaw. And you see all the like where he sketched what he made her, like multiple versions of her. It's creepy as heck. And I was like, dang, this thing is dark. And so that's my thought on that. Wow, we took up 20 minutes talking about Alien and Raised by, at least I did.
And still, we can all agree Raised by Wolves is stupid.
No, watch episode 9 and 10 and come back at me. It changes.
It's painful. It's really, truly painful.
The whole time.
Pretty sure I'm going to cancel HBO Max just because they made me watch Raised by Wolves.
That was their sin, was making that series for you. You're done. You're dead to me.
Well, the stupid part is, like, I bought HBO Max through my YouTube because I have YouTube TV. And you can't watch Raised by Wolves. It's the one show you can't watch on YouTube TV. They make you download the app, which doesn't, like, there's not a Fire Stick version of it because that's what I use as a Fire Stick. So I literally have to watch it on my iPad. I'm like, I hate you guys even more now.
It's so interesting because when you watch things like Cobra Kai, that existed on YouTube TV. And no one knew about it, really.
Right.
I mean, we kind of heard.
Show. Yeah.
Then when it hits Netflix, everybody's talking about it, right? Like Netflix is a way to go.
Bigger. Yeah,
that's a way to go. And this thing, I feel like it's kind of like one of the best kept secrets of entertainment right now.
Which one?
The Raised by Wolves.
No, you're stupid.
Yeah,
it's truly stupid. It's truly stupid. It's like the dumbest show ever.
Did you not think it's so rad how, like, she's this weapon of mass destruction that's been, like, have you gotten to her reprogramming yet?
How can she float? This is, like, not even real.
So check it out. You're going to get to this if you haven't yet. They make the point that she's been deposited by aliens. Like the technology that the religious people use to build these androids, they didn't understand it. They just borrowed it, right? So they don't even know what she's capable of. So she is alien technology. She's not been built she's been built by the religious people as an android with some technology that they don't understand, just like that thing. So they're worshiping aliens. These people thinking they're worshiping a sun god are actually worshiping an alien who came, ages ago and dropped down whatever relic. So they've got that relic that looks like that thing in the desert. That's why they freak out and go nuts over it. This is all alien technology. And it's meant to do something. So if you go back to Prometheus and you start watching the show through those eyes, you're like, oh, something. What was this planet for? Right. Mm-hmm. And it's got this similar kind of code as the other one's, like Kepler.
One of the big problems with Prometheus is it's
stupid. Go on, Pete.
I wouldn't say it's as stupid as Raised by Wolves.
Yeah.
I didn't find it like, oh, I love Prometheus. But the dude who at the very beginning kills himself to like spread his DNA, like how he dissolves himself or whatever it is that he does.
Yeah.
It's like no one would ever do that. Literally no one would kill themselves.
Right. But it's a religious thing for the engineers. The engineers are their own religion. And they make the point that Ridley Scott says an alien race made them. So they've got their own religion of these aliens, and they're worshiping that. So he's sacrificing himself in a religious ceremony. If you look, there's like it's almost like communion, like where they open the little thing and he takes, apparently that's the blood. The black goo is a blood from the alien species that made them. And and it morphs whatever it touches. It joins with the
if
DNA.
You can't figure that out by watching the movie,
correct.
Then it's stupid. I've never heard that before.
You're a
I've never heard that before.
No, and you're a film major, and I watch too much YouTube videos on this stuff. But I love it. By the way, when I shower every day, there's two things. I either worship, pray, or watch stupid YouTube videos. Today it was the 4-hour epic cut of Last Jedi. There's a guy on there named Mike Zero, who I thought was a total hack till he actually predicted everything that came in the last, or whatever this last one was, the Rise of Skywalker. And I thought the whole time, this guy's just making stuff up. And he's like, an insider source tells me. I'm like, I'm not watching him before the next movie anymore because somebody's telling that guy stuff. But he got it all. He's like, oh, Palpatine, is her grandfather, and we're going to find it. And I was like, oh, he said my version of what's going to happen is what happens. But Mike Zero, he's been talking about the 4-hour extended epic cut of Rise of Skywalker, and he's not a huge fan of it, but he says they're going to put all the crap back that JJ had, and Lucas is now on it to help make it what it needs to be.
Are they really going to release it?
4-hour cut because they feel that they need to save the stuff. They know that they ruined it. As soon as Bob Iger is he the new guy or the old guy?
I don't know.
I think Bob Iger, I can't remember, but anyways, either he's a guy going out, but immediately the new guy was coming in. He limited Kathleen Kennedy. It was the first thing he did. He said, you have no more creative control. And he brought Lucas in. So
I unfortunately don't have much faith in Lucas.
I know you don't.
I mean, other than he created a world that then others were able to take and make great movies off of. That's about the limit of Lucas.
Who's the guy, though, that you don't like The Mandalorian, and I'm in awe of The Mandalorian.
I thought we both were in agreement that it was stupid. Are you serious? You like it now?
No. So I will say this. There were a couple episodes there where I was like, oh, what is this? Like the one with the heist and the one – I didn't like the one with the dog people and the ATD. That was like episode 4, and I was starting to go, oh, man, the first episode was rad. It's kind of going downhill. It picks back up towards the end. The last couple episodes are it's part of the story arc of the first. There are 3 episodes there. They're every bit as good as the best Star Wars movies. I mean, that IG-8, doing his thing. I mean, there was just some amazing stuff in there. The Jawa fight in episode 2, they had me, and then they started to lose me, and then they got me back again. So
I need to officially end our friendship. And
yeah, I'm sorry, Pete. Star Wars is stronger than friendship.
After 410 episodes of the Church Planter podcast, it's going to be no more. I can't do it.
And that's how it happens. Folks, that's what finally does it. Pete and I have weathered all kinds of storms, but the
Mandalorian was the straw that broke the camel's back.
We knew it would come down to Star Wars, and it's fitting. It's kind of like, when we're laying there, I'm glad it was you. That's what I'll say about
What about Battlestar Galactica? Did you ever watch Battlestar Galactica?
No, but I hear I'm missing out on some of the best writing on television.
The problem is you and I have such different views on movies and TV. I don't know that you would like it because it was truly amazing. So I'm pretty much thinking you're not going to like it.
I need to watch it. It starts off slow though, right? It doesn't start
I don't think it started off slow at all. It starts off with
maybe
the destruction of the human race. So,
I hear there's quite a bit of sex in it, which is why I kind of got out of
but it was Sci-Fi Channel, so I don't think they showed body parts. She has a lot of sex.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't remember there being actual nudity in it, but then I don't know. I can't.
So my actual favorite show was Vikings. 8 years ago,
I tried to watch that, and I couldn't really make it.
That got pretty racy.
I couldn't make it. It wasn't because of that. I just couldn't make it. It didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I was so into that Ragnar, and then it got a little bit seedy, and I stopped watching it. And then the other one I loved was the one based on the book by Bernard Cornwell, and it was about Uhtred Bedenberg, and I can't even remember the name of it right now, but it was amazing. And it was about this Anglo-Saxon guy that gets raised by Vikings. You can tell my genre, right? But that got the very first episode was a little bit racy of season 4, and I was like, well, there goes that. That's my cutoff. If it's going to get sexual, I'm done. So there's no sex in Raised by Wolves.
There is.
Yeah, there is kind of an instant. Yeah, they talk about something that happened.
No, there is. There
is.
There? Yeah, there's a scene.
Oh, with the end. Yeah, that was kind of weird though,
the
right?
blood
that was
and that was
milk. Yeah, the android. Like there was something with an android. Which
well,
was
the android
weird.
did too. But I'm talking about the husband and wife. They have a scene.
I don't remember. Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah, that was just gross.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't really sexual. It's kind of gross. Yeah.
It wasn't sexual.
Well,
they're having sex.
It wasn't like porn, like
no.
That's where I'm like, hey, you're trying to. That was more like it was horrific. It wasn't like it wasn't meant to be like a hey, let's titillate you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it's funny, man. I'm sensitive in weird ways like that. So, but anyways,
great Scott, it's time for this week's topic.
It is. All right, let's get in. That was really fun. So if you guys are like, hey, look, I'm just going to say I've been really busy. That was probably the funnest part of my entire week, right? Just geeking out on that. So Pete, thanks for geeking out on my stuff, man.
Hey, for our last episode, it was my pleasure.
Well, for our last episode, then, it's fitting that we talk about the activities of apostolic planners. Those of you that know that church planning is it's an apostles' game. No, I'm teasing. A shepherd can plan a church. An evangelist can plan a church. When shepherds tend to plant churches, they call them house churches. Or, you all right?
Yeah, sorry, muscle spasm.
No,
it's arm day. It's arm day at the Mitchell Gym, and yeah,
you were over there flexing, huh? And then it went, and you went, oh crap!
No, I had a muscle spasm. I'm like, I stretch the arm out. Oh,
yeah. So it's arm day, and not for me. But
it's fat friend.
I'm Pete's fat friend now. I've been walking every day with Andrea, though. Holy crap, that's doing something.
That's awesome. Tell you.
Because after writing a textbook for 16 hours a day. So anyways, all that to say, so, like when an evangelist plants a church, it tends to go mega, right? When a shepherd plants a church, it tends to become a house church, or it becomes a missional community. When prophets plant churches, they become Pentecostal. And if they don't have the right balance, it'll get weird. And when apostles plant churches, they become mission stations if they don't have the balance of the APEST on their team to kind of pull them back from a constant circus tent mentality. Let's go out to the next city and do the next thing. And so each of these have an inherent. All these roles can plan a church. Like there's nothing that says you don't. The difference between the apostles and the other parts of the APES is it's kind of like Obi-Wan looked at Emperor Palpatine and said, Sith Lords are our speciality, right? Like church.
Why did you have to refer back to one of the movies that is just
Revenge of the Sith is okay. Come on.
No, it's not. None of them are.
In the pantheon of Star Wars, it holds an honorable place.
If there was a way I could mute your mic right now, I'd mute your mic for this blasphemy you speak.
I love Revenge of the Sith. So anyways, it goes on that, obviously all these guys can't. But Paul's activities in the New Testament kind of give us like a roadmap to understand if you're an apostolic planner, these are the things that are true to you, right? So think like Jeff Foxworthy, right? You're a redneck if, right? You would know you're apostolic if these 8 things are a part of what you do. So number 1, let me just say, I'll say them quickly, and then you'll get to kind of walk through them with us. Or should I throw out the tension slowly, Pete? Should I just piece it out and let people? I so love that Pete doesn't take any of this seriously. So I say that like knowing he's going to roll his eyes. So, okay. So here's the 8. Number 1, he heralds the gospel. It's kind of obvious, right? He's going to preach a gospel. And Paul saw that as his first duty, by the way. So if church planning ever gets ahead of preaching the gospel, you're doing something totally wrong. Number 2, he recruits, or she, we can say she, recruits and trains others. The apostle models bold, pioneering faith. The apostle plants churches. That does happen. We're really good at it. The apostle strategically sends. The apostle, number 6, pioneers cross-cultural bridges. The apostolic planner catalyzes mission. And number 8, seeds contagious vision. So podcast done. You can go. Now let's talk about each one of those. And we have
it seeds COVID-19 vision. What? Oh,
Yes.
contagious. Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
You know, it's funny because I'm doing Through the Word with Chris Langham right now. And I just did 2 John where John's like, hey, don't let him into your house, you know. And I used the whole super spreader analogy and the virus and shelter in place, save lives. You know, John's telling him, don't let him in. They're super spreaders, man. It was so funny. So not that you should ever laugh during a pandemic, but it's just a great illustration of heresy. So, and I talked about the confusion, like the, you know, no one knew what to believe. You know, who do I believe? People are telling me different things. And John writes 2 John to say, hey, I'm the voice of authority. I'm your Dr. Fauci here. Let me tell you, you know, but I didn't say Fauci because you know and I know that we heard conflicting things even from there. And I brought up that even the authorities were saying different things. And so John comes in and is like, hey, you know, let me just tell you where it's at. So that's what 2 John is about. So that was fun. So, okay, so number 1, the apostolic planner heralds the gospel. So Paul's own description, let me just read you a couple verses. These are Paul's accounts of what he does. He says, but the Lord said, go, for he's a chosen instrument of mine to carry my name before the Gentile and kings and the children of Israel. And he said, the God of our fathers appointed you to know his will, to see the righteous one. So Paul, and then he says, when Christ appeared to him in Acts 26, I've appeared to you for this purpose, to appoint you as a servant and witness to the things in which you've seen me, and to those in which I will appear to you, delivering you from your people and from the Gentiles, to whom I am sending you to open their eyes. So Paul saw it as his primary function to preach the gospel. And he says, thus I make it my ambition to preach the gospel, not where Christ has already been named, lest I build on someone else's foundation. But as it is written, those who have been told him will see, and those who have never heard will understand. And so Paul saw his central activity. The central activity of any missionary is to be evangelistic. And in my textbook coming up, I've got a quote that says, you may plant a church without being evangelistic.
You have a textbook?
What?
I didn't know anything about this.
It's news to me, man. So he says, you may plant a church without being evangelistic, but you can't function apostolically without being evangelistic. So a shepherd can plant and not be evangelistic, but you can't be an apostle. It's who you are. It's what I do, right? If I were to use the analogy, you know, never mind. So anyways, the apostolic leader is also a recruiter and trainer. So one of the things that's really interesting is when you plant apostolically, you're not content just to plant a church. You're not just going to roll in and plant a church. You're going to gather people around you that you're training. That's just what Paul did, right? He gains he gains Timothy, Silvanus, Epaphroditus. I mean, there's all these people. He's just, you know, Silas. He's got all these people he's dragging towards him. He's sucking them into kind of like Disney. Remember Walt Disney? One of the first things Walt Disney does when he starts making it big is he recruits the 9 old men, right? I mean, they would be the ones that they were the Imagineers, the ones that really designed everything. He found other talent because his vision was bigger than himself. Remember, Walt Disney started off as this humble cartoonist. He drew Mickey Mouse. They made a film, and he's like, okay, crap. I'm on to something here. My animation is unique. I need to recruit more. And that's what apostles do, right? Think of Disney as kind of like an apostle of, animation, right? And that's what an apostle is going to do. Apostle won't just, they will delegate, they will train. And that's what Disney did is he got these people together and he created almost like this little school of animation. So when they did Bambi, he would bring in deers, and you can find old pictures where he's got a deer in a little, kind of makeshift wooden fenced area, and all these artists are sitting around, sketching this deer, because he was like, hey, I don't know how deers move. You don't know how deers move, and we got to animate one. And this, what the guy said is that Disney was always doing this kind of innovative stuff to train them, to make them better artists. And so, So let me just kind of give you some, just an appreciation of the people that Paul recruited, and kind of where they went. In Crete, it was Titus, Tychicus, and Apollos. In Cyprus, it was Mark and Barnabas. In Syria, it was Barnabas, Mark, Titus, and Silas. In Galatia, it was Barnabas, Silas, and Timothy. Asia was Aristarchus, Priscilla, Aquila, Achaeus, Stephanas, Apollos, Epaphras, Trophimus. And Macedonia is Timothy, Silas, Erastus, Trophimus, Eudias, Syntyche, Clement, Epaphroditus. Rome was Mark, Luke, Demas. Crescens, Tychicus, Priscilla, Aquila, Epaphroditus, Urbanus, Typhina, and Tryphosa, and Persis. So, like right there, you're like,
I'm sorry, are you reading a genealogy from the Bible just
no,
for the podcast?
These are different areas where Paul had these fellow workers. the big book of Bible baby names is something I've been compiling as I move
My
through.
next child, Tychicus, for sure.
Tychicus, yes. So Tychicus wrote a lot of the New Testament epistles. You know that, right?
Tychicus.
A lot of the New Testament epistles, Tychicus was sitting there as Paul's scribe, and he was usually his messenger. He's his mailman. But apostolic planners are also role models. That's number 3. So they're not just recruiters and trainers. They are role models. So Paul says, you follow my teaching, my conduct, my aim of life. He writes that to Timothy. And in almost every epistle, Paul gives an invitation to imitate his pattern of life, right? So he says, for example, what you've learned, received, and heard and seen in me, practice these things, Philippians 4:9. Therefore, I urge you to imitate me, 1 Corinthians 4:16. Be imitators of me as I am of Christ, 1 Corinthians 11:1. For you yourselves know how you ought to imitate us, 2 Thessalonians. For we are not idle when we are with you, nor do we eat anyone's bread without paying for it. Philippians 3, brothers, join in imitating me. Keep your eyes on those who walk according to the example you have in us. Philippians 4, what you've learned and received and heard me, practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So imagine somebody rolling in and going, hey, look at me and imitate me, right? Like we would see that as being kind of arrogant in our day, right? We wouldn't, but to Paul, it was important what you did, not just what you said. So to Paul, that's why he calls the false teachers empty talkers. They didn't live it, right? They didn't walk the walk. Paul very much was reproducing not teachers. He was reproducing apostles. He wanted them to do what he did. He wanted them to be what he was. He didn't just want them to carry a message. It was extremely important that they had the authority of someone who was putting their life on the line for the gospel. And that carries a weight of authority. You and I have talked about this, Pete, before, where like in 3 John, where he says, hey, support these types of people, make note of them, support them for, he says, they take nothing from the Gentiles. It's a great bivocational passage in 3 John, where he says they don't take anyone's money. They just go do this. And he says, imitate them, right? Like go be like them, be like these missionaries. And so for Paul, he wanted to have people, the average believer, start thinking and acting like a missionary. So Paul was like, I'm going to model what all of you should be. And of course, that's part of the apostolic mindset in ministry, is to mobilize believers to be missionaries in their own gifting. And I've quoted this a million times on this podcast. I'm going to quote it again. One of Wesley's fellow workers, John Fletcher, remarked that John Wesley has generally blown the gospel trumpet and rode 20 miles before most of his professors who despise his labors have left their downy pillows. So most of the professors who despise his labors have left their downy pillows. So rad. And of course, because John Wesley worked harder than anybody else, like Paul says, I worked harder than anyone. Spasm.
Yes. That hurt.
But because Paul outworked he says, I worked harder than all. Like, can you imagine? Paul says, I worked harder than anyone. That's crazy. But Wesley said the same kind of stuff. That's why I tell people you wouldn't like Wesley if you met him. That's how he talked. But he could back it. But there's a reason that he inspired a generation of circuit riders to live like he lived, a life on the road, preaching the gospel from town to town, because they wanted to be like him, right? When's the last time you got around a leader and you thought, man, I want to be like that dude. Right. I want to be filled with the Spirit like him. I want to take risks for the gospel like that dude takes. I want to love my family like that person. You know, I want to be anointed like that person. That's who Paul was, right? The apostle as a planter. I mean, this one goes without saying, right? The apostolic function is you're going to plant churches. And everywhere Paul went, he says, I laid a foundation. Now, he would define that as this foundation no man can lay other than the one that's been laid, which is Christ. So even in planting a church, Paul saw the foundation of Jesus.
By the way, the insulation on your house, not quite doing it for the train.
He does honk right us up. If you heard it, so I got a door on now. So ooh. I feel the difference. That before insulation, that was big because I'm right up level with that horn now. I'm not like 150 feet over in that part of my property. I am now right like 10 feet from maybe 20 feet from the railroad or from the fence.
Are they going to put a sound wall up?
There's talk of them doing a bunch of stuff. I doubt it.
Really?
They were talking about putting the train underground, and a good friend of ours is a lawyer for the trains, and she said, no. She goes, when you see the amount of money, she goes, they didn't bring that much money in. They're not doing that. Yeah. So, yeah. And the city will never justify, because they did it in Encinitas, and the walls are collapsing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the earth is giving way. So, but anyways, yeah, that's not good, right? So apostolic planners are senders, number 5. So they don't just recruit, they send as well. They don't just gather, they also send out. So like when we were, all these things so far, would be things that, Pete, when you look back to Refuge Long Beach, all of these would have been true, right? Of what you witnessed in the ministry there. We were preaching Christ. I was gathering planners around me to train. Hopefully they were inspired by my life and things that we're talking about. Apostolic planners are senders. I was sending people out. I was going to send Jimbo, that crash and burn, sending out Reuben over to the projects, which the church plant never took hold, but the mission was great, and they still go back there. You're always sending, right? You're always mobilizing, sending Charlie over to Impact, over in Whittier. So Paul sent Timothy to Corinth. He sent Timothy to Ephesus. He sent Timothy to Thessalonica. He sent Timothy to Philippi. He sent Epaphroditus to Philippi. He sent Titus to Corinth. He sent Titus to Crete. He sent Titus to Dalmatia. He sent Tychicus, your favorite, to Ephesus, Colossia, and Crete. Right. And I've got scripture references, but you have to buy the book to get that. But
you can just read the Bible.
You could buy it now if you wanted on Amazon.com. You just go to Amazon,
pre-order,
search Peyton Jones pre-order, and you'll get the book at a special discount, I might say. So I think is it like $19? I don't know. It's expensive. It's a big book. So the apostolic planners are pioneers as well. And there's a document that is, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I want to say, is it the Didache? Didache? I don't know. It's Didache. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's the teaching. I mean, it's teaching in Greek, and it's teaching of the apostles, an early Christian document that describes the way the church has operated in the first century. And here's a quote from it. Traveling apostles and prophets and residents and teachers. This is from Kenneth Scott Lartourette. He says it instructed Christians to appoint for themselves bishops and deacons to hold them in honor along with prophets and teachers. So what he has in there is he talks about traveling apostles and prophets and resident prophets and teachers. So what he's showing is there's people on the move and there's people that are stationary. So you have this kind of pioneer aspect in the very beginning. And so as pioneers, apostolic planners, they're wired for challenge, right? So when you see a pioneer is not, this is confusing to people because a pioneer is not wired for big numbers, right? You think Paul, you think, oh, big numbers. Paul didn't tend to have big numbers. So if you're a planner and you're like, I don't have big numbers, but you're in a challenging spot and you're actually reaching lost people, that's what's on the label. That's what you're supposed to be doing. The people that are wired for high numbers are evangelists, right? And they will not go for high challenge. They will typically be in an area that's already been evangelized by an apostle. Already the ground's been broken by a pioneer. So an evangelist typically comes in afterwards. So in the case of like Paul in Corinth, Paul goes there and does all of the foundational work, stays there for a year and a half. When he pulls out, Apollos comes in and he says, I sowed, Apollos watered, right? So Paul spends a year and a half there, meets Priscilla and Aquila. They're killing it for a year and a half in Corinth. Then as he leaves to go on to Ephesus, then the other comes in. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, and I like what Alan Hirsch says about pioneers. They have an ability to invent the future while dealing with the past, a willingness to break the traditional ideas and methods, an ability to play multiple roles at the same time, a high tolerance for risk, a need to be different despite supporters wanting the pioneer to stay the same, and an understanding that many want the pioneer to fail. That's just kind of something to chew on. And then the apostle is a catalyst. The apostle mobilizes. So the catalyst means that you mobilize people to get going in their own gifts. So let me just read you a quote. Dwight Moody volunteered to teach Sunday school at the Mission on Chicago Avenue and Wells Street in Chicago. The superintendent of the Sunday School Society, which is kind of a big deal then, informed him they already had enough teachers, but if he could work up a class of his own, he could teach. The next Sunday, he brought 18 poor street urchins from the poorest part of the neighborhood known as Little Hell. Not only did he catalyze that Sunday school, he recruited 2 helpers immediately and started a Sunday school in Little Hell in an abandoned freight car. From there, he started a class for the older boys in a derelict saloon. As the Sunday schools grew into the hundreds, Moody began to catalyze others to assist the expanding mission that grew out of thin air. So in that sense, you see that Moody is, he's catalyzing people around him. So he raised up an entire team, got people catalyzed in evangelism. Apostolic planners are vision casters. So one of the cool things is that when Paul says, I laid a foundation like a master builder, what Paul's talking about is he laid a foundation according to a blueprint. The blueprint is like a vision. And so as you find the difference between an apostle, when I say he's a vision caster, it's a little bit misleading because he doesn't give the vision to the people. What he more does is he inspires it. He casts out a general vision and he lets the people fill it. And once they start to fill it, then he gets everybody to own the vision, right? Again, it's part of that mobilizing, it's part of that catalyzing. He kind of empowers everybody to have the vision going forward. And I like to kind of share that with Refuge Long Beach. I just was talking to them about the merger. So we've got 4 churches coming together to make a Voltron church, which is going to be rad. I keep telling them you got to call it the First Church of Voltron. And they're all the
I
church.
think your conversation with Langham was just the funniest thing ever. And I shared that with Jamie.
What was it?
What you should not name the church?
Yeah, they're going to rename it because what happened is there's Reach Fellowship that D.A. Horton planted in Long Beach. There's Refuge Long Beach, and then I don't remember the other one. But anyways, Refuge Long Beach is never going back to that park. I mean, as long as for the next foreseeable future, we're nuts in California. Nobody's issuing a permit. So the Department of Parks and Recreation already said you will not get an open air permit, because we will not allow you to host 25 people or more. You're not going back to the community center. That's shut indefinitely. So we've kind of let people know that, hey, there is no going back right now. But meanwhile, we had been talking with Terrence Brooks, trying to get him to sign on. And so I'll make this really quick. But so the church building. So as we're doing this, Reach approaches Terrence, and we just said, you know what, this is the Lord. We always kind of have open arms with everything anyways at Refuge. And so we start joining. But anyways, Chris is like, well, we're gonna name the church. We're gonna rename it because this building, this dying congregation with 10 people, approached Terrence at the same time where he was coming over to Refuge and say, hey, we got a building. So Terrence like, look, all this stuff coming together. So what happened was he said, we're going to change the name. Right now it's called Victory in Jesus. That's the name of the church where the building is. And so I'm like, well, I got a few pointers, Chris, don't call it Victory in Buddha, Victory in Muhammad, Victory in Krishna. Don't, if I could just give you a church naming tip.
And then he goes, oh man, there go the first 4 names that we had down.
That's right. And then I told him, well, and then on the other side, if you keep the name Jesus, make sure it's not doom in Jesus. Make sure it's not
in Jesus.
Failure in Jesus and victory in Jesus. Make sure you don't change that part too much either. So, but anyways, apparently they've taken my ideas to heart, and they're going to rename with those pointers in mind. So that's good. But as I was talking with the church there, I was telling them, look, all these different incarnations that happen, I stood back. I was not the guy saying, we need to do this. We need to serve breakfast. That came from Charlie. The seeds of that were planted back in the church when a lady who had been homeless, who was part of our team, she's like, look, I needed socks back then. I'm going to bring socks. Once she started bringing socks, homeless people started grabbing them. And once homeless people started grabbing socks, then someone started bringing barrels of apples and cheese and bottled waters. Like, what people just started, it was like stone soup, man. Everybody was just throwing. That vision was created. The body owned the vision. And I'll never forget finding that hotel. Remember we went to that Holiday Inn? It's kind of iconic off the 405 across from the airport. It's one of the tower circular Holiday Inns, and the glass windows overlook the entire city. And I had everybody in the very beginning, I had them lay their hands on the glass and pray over the city because it was this huge panoramic view. And I told them then, I said, we have no idea what God's going to do, but you're all a part of this. You can see, you've got this vision of the city. I want you to pray for vision, because this vision's, I had seen it before. It wasn't my first rodeo.
What I remember about that is I hated the name Refuge because it always sounds like refuse to me. Like refuse church, trash church, what? And everyone was like, it would have. Everyone was like, no, refuge, because the Huntington Beach one's refuge. And then they're all gone. Like none of them stuck around. Like they fought so hard for that name and not a single one of them stuck around.
I know. It's so true, isn't it? So true. So weird, man, the stuff people fight over. But hey, we're running out of time here. So Pete, when you're doing all these 8 things apostolically while you're planting your church, you don't have time to be doing the bookkeeping and the tax compliance. What do you do, Pete?
I usually live stream on Facebook while talking to simplifychurch.com.
Nice. Yeah. Josh Henry, if you're listening, we're thinking of you right now. He posted the greatest meme yesterday. Did you see that thing?
No.
It was this kid at the top of a hill, and there's this huge, like San Francisco style hill. And then there's a pier at the end, and the little kids, he's like 80, he's got a skateboard.
Yes.
He says, this is why kids need parents. And I put, that kid is a church planner. And then someone else put the comment on there and said, no, Peyton, because there's no brick wall at that pier.
That's funnier.
So I thought that was Benjamin Eckel for that one. A little shout out. But hey, just wanted to let you guys know, head on over to simplifychurch.com and tell them Pete and Peyton sent you. So, we're still shouting them out and giving some love. And this has been Peyton Jones today with Pete Mitchell, reminding you, if you want to reach the ones nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.